Trigger warning, this episode contains discussions around depression and suicide. Listener discretion is advised. If you or someone you know needs help, please call the National Suicide and Crisis Hotline, dial 988. You are not alone.
A sneak peek at what's coming up next.
That's something people don't talk about a lot, is like a lot of people are super trained to think depression and suicidal ideation look a certain way. Look for the trigger signs. If they're giving away all their stuff, they might be contemplating suicide. Like, for myself, when I've ever gotten to certain points, like, I didn't withdraw from other people. I was more social. I went out more because I was trying to put on a fucking mask more.
And even when I was depressed and suicidal myself,
Yeah.
I used to make jokes because that's how I deal with things.
Me too.
Look at all the famous people who have killed themselves, who were rich and famous, had money, but it didn't make a difference for how they felt. It's not about like having what we consider to be successful.
Right.
It's having purpose and meaning in your life.
Yes.
It's a product of the modern world, with things like social media, technology. And I'm sorry to sound like Ted Kaczynski right now, but I think that...
You go, Unabomber. Sure. I guess seeing how it's my topic, I should start the show, huh? Welcome, everyone, to On the Spectrum podcast. My name is Nick, and this is my fabulous co-host, Steve. And so this is actually episode number 2 for today that we're recording. So if we sound like the wind is taken out of our sails a little bit, it might be because of that, but we're going to pick it back up because that's what we do. Anyway, so our topic for today, and this is kind of why I felt like saying that, but our topic for today is we're actually going to talk a little bit about depression and we also, and being on the spectrum, and
FDR
issues. Yep, we're going to talk about FDR. We'd like to negotiate a triple newer deal, but we're going to talk about depression, but we're also going to talk about suicide. And if you can't figure out what the fuck I just said, you youngsters call it unaliving. But we're going to talk about that a little bit. So I do want to point out.
Do you call it smuicide?
Yeah, smuicide.
I thought you said smuicide. Is that like when you have too much vagina? Like, death by vagina. Smuicide.
No, so obviously I'm saying it that way because, there's going to be some algorithm somewhere or some bullshit that's going to fucking stop the episode from, people hearing it. But I do want to say that I guess trigger warning would be appropriate to say we're going to talk about some tough fucking shit.
I'm going to put a disclaimer anyway.
Yeah, I know, but I'm still going to say it to make sure we're verbalizing it. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And you can click out of the episode if you want at this point, because I'm not going to force nobody to listen to us talk about it. But it's something super important to talk about. And one of the main reasons why it's super important is you yourself personally probably know that it's important to talk about depression, talk about suicide, unaliving, if you will. But also what's important about talking about it is that it's something that is talked about.
Because of the stigma?
It is not a subject. Yeah, because of stigma. Also because a lot
it's
of
something
folks,
taboo you're not supposed to talk about. So when people actually have a problem or have an issue, they don't feel like they can talk about it openly because of the stigma.
Well, I mean, like the fact that the algorithms are going to fucking censor it.
Well,
like people talk about how you can't talk about it because it'll trigger somebody, but we should fucking talk about it to remove some of that, but also to make sure people are okay with saying it before it gets to a point where they're going to fucking commit unaliving.
Have you ever heard about that? Sorry, this is a little bit of a tangent, but not really. You heard about that forest in Japan where people go to kill themselves?
Yeah.
Just interesting.
Yeah. William Shatner talked about it in an episode of Unexplained. If I remember
really?
correctly.
Okay. I've seen it on there. I probably
have you not seen that episode?
I probably have, but I've heard about it in other things too because it's been mentioned. There was a YouTuber who got in trouble there actually.
Got in trouble in that Japanese forest?
I forget who it was. It was a really popular, like one of the big ones. Yeah. Actually, it was one of the Paul brothers there.
Oh yeah?
They went there and they actually found a dead body.
No shit.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like the cops are trying to get people to stop.
I think they got in trouble. I think I think YouTube ended up like flagging their channel or something because they were live streaming in Japan. They literally had a dead body.
They stumbled across it.
They stumbled across somebody who had unalived themselves in the Japanese
suicide.
I'm not going to call it that. The Japanese suicide forest. I'm going to call it what it is. People. It's kind of weird to me though. Like the culture around suicide is different there than it is here.
You said the word.
The culture is different there, and it's kind of an interesting concept that they have a fucking forest where people do it. And people know that people go to that forest to do it. And yet the forest is like, what do they do? Chop down the fucking trees?
Yeah, but the cops are trying to stop it from happening now.
Yeah.
It was on that episode of Unexplained because they were talking about like the most haunted places in the world.
Leave it to America to turn that into some fucking bullshit that they can make money off of.
Yeah, a tourist event. One of the reasons why I want to bring this topic up is because this topic is personal to me. I have been in behavioral health wards twice for suicidal ideation in my life. I do get bouts of suicidal ideation at times throughout the year, but I never act on it. And I never let myself create a story. I don't let myself have a plan. I don't any of that kind of stuff. But every now and again, a thought will pop in my head. I'll have a bad fucking day or some shit. Anyway, so that's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about it. It also affects autistic folk, and actually it affects neurodivergent folks like a motherfucker. It affects a lot of people like all hell. And one of the things one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about it is because it needs to be talked about. And far too many people dismiss it. They give it fucking fancy love language fucking wording to it. Unaliving. No, it's
love language.
It's flowery. It's nicer fucking ways of wording.
Like euphemism?
Yeah. There you go. That's what I meant. That's what the fuck I meant.
No, just when you said love language to me, that means something else.
Yeah, I know it does to me too. I just meant that like they try to put
they use euphemistic terms that downplay the sincere.
Right.
Since it's supposed
severity.
to lessen the severity by using a word that's not as intense.
And I understand part of the reason why you're calling it unaliving opposed to actually calling it suicide. Okay, trying to eliminate self.
Oh, now who said the word?
Yeah. We said it. I would have preferred to start with saying it, but anyway. We're saying it that way. I get because of algorithms, because of social media, because we don't want to trigger anybody. You know what? Quite frankly, that's one of the reasons why people get to that fucking point is because we're not fucking talking about shit in a real fucking way. We're not letting people express their fucking emotions. And on top of that, there's nobody to listen when somebody is getting to that point. Depression gets us to that point quite often. And quite honestly, if somebody was there to listen to somebody in a real fucking way talk about their depression, somebody might not get to a point where they feel like they should fucking like not breathe today. Because a lot of the times when people mention that they're depressed or start to express that they're feeling lesser or sad or down, whatever the fuck way you want to word that, a lot of the times people immediately try to people immediately try to make them happier, try to cheer them up, try to all that shit. And my personal opinion, this is my personal opinion about this, is don't fucking do that. Don't try to.
Steve, I'm feeling like
make somebody happy.
Might want to kill myself today. And I'm I'm sorry to hear that. Here's an ice cream cone.
Yeah.
That's the wrong reaction.
That's a bad way to go about it. But like even before they get to a point where they don't want to live today or they don't want to live anymore, but long before they ever get to that point, they're already expressing like feeling like shit, feeling like they're a piece of shit, feeling like they're not worth anything. The person's already expressing this shit long before that, and people try to cheer them up. Well, go for a walk, get a piece of candy, do something nice for yourself. Fuck you. Like, don't avoid the fucking feeling, but also like, every time somebody says, "Oh, it'll get better,"
why don't you do what?
How the fuck do you know? And B, you don't know it won't.
Why don't you do what people have done throughout history and pick up a guitar or a paintbrush?
Because, oh, good God.
Some of the best art has been made by people who were really fucking unhappy.
Who had fucking mental health issues. Got it. I know that's a true statement, but at the same time, like telling somebody. One of the times I was locked up, and I say locked up, but I wasn't like locked up in prison or anything. I was on the psych ward. One of the times I was there, I had one of the worker people, okay, talk about, well, you should write your feelings down. And I said, oh, do you do that? And they're like, no. And I was like, how do you know it works? Well, it's one of the things they say. Like, so you have no idea if it works or not. You have no idea if it's actually beneficial to write out your fucking feelings. And I said, here, you know, it'd be way quicker. Why don't we talk? Can you take 5 minutes out of your day? Well, I mean, I have so much to do. I was like, no, you don't. Your entire job is to wander around the fucking crazy floor and make sure we're not trying to kill ourselves. So what the fuck do you have to do today?
Isn't like writing stuff down, isn't that sometimes a part of CBT?
It can be. Yeah. Doing narrative brief therapy or narrative therapy can, like, there's evidence to support it's a good idea and shit. By the way, I knew that there was evidence to support writing shit down was a good idea.
Yeah, but it also depends on...
But they fucking did.
It also depends on the person and, like...
It does. There's a ton of factors. But what I'm trying to say, I mean, that can help people, and that could be a good coping skill to help somebody work through depression. One of the things that I want to say about it is every asshole seems to think they know what's best. And honestly, shut the fuck up. And one of the reasons why I'm saying shut the fuck up is listen to the fucking person in front of you. Don't try to cheer them up. Don't try to give them words of encouragement.
It sounds like what you're saying is that by
listen
doing
to what they have to fucking say.
It sounds like what you're saying by doing those types of things or trying to fix the problem.
Put this in context.
Is that you're not letting the person work through their feelings. It sounds like
yes,
you're dismissing their feelings because you're saying like, well, you need to be happy. So I need to try to find something to make you happy instead of just letting you feel whatever it is you're feeling or letting you work through those feelings.
So it's not necessarily dismissing, but yes, it's more about they hear you say, I'm sad, and immediately go to, well, let's do something to cheer you up. How about fucking no? Because like we've talked about in other episodes where I have bipolar. Okay.
What?
And with bipolar disorder, there are episodes of depression that can last from a few days to a few months. Sorry, every time I hear that, I'm fucking something. Okay. Anyway,
are you rehearsing for a drug commercial?
Yes, I know. All right.
You're going to be in a new bipolar drug commercial.
God, I would love it.
Bouts of depression.
I know. Yeah. But with that, right? And I'm going to say this just for bipolar because I can't speak on anybody else's depression. I can't speak on any other emotionality. But here's what I can say. If you are bipolar and you feel depression, well, guess what, fucker? At some point, that episode's going to end and you're going to shift the fuck up, right? It's a guarantee. It's the goddamn disorder. That's how it fucking works. You're going to shift up, right? But I will say for just about anybody on a personal fucking level, you do not have to avoid feeling negative. You don't have to avoid feeling like shit. You, in fact, do not have to react to your emotions ever.
You know, this is not related to what you're saying necessarily.
Right.
But half of the time you say things,
what
it doesn't matter the topic.
Yeah.
But you use certain phrases that just put imagery in my head of like songs. So when you said like you're down, you're depressed, and you're gonna get up eventually, I just pictured James Brown like, get up, get on up, get up, get on up.
Well, I'm glad I can inspire imagery of James like Brown in your head.
Like there's something you said earlier too, another phrase that made me think of a song, and I pictured like the musician in my head doing the song related to whatever you said. Like for that one, I pictured James Brown doing his his leg thing, like Sex Machine.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I love it.
Get on up.
So.
Get on the scene.
And this is another topic that I'm rather passionate about and rather I got a lot of emotional reaction about. And one of the because yes, I've been in those places and I also deal with my own, shift in episode bipolar and all that jazz. But it's every time I'm going on the social medias and I'm in the TikToks, the autism-y space, and I'm hearing people talk about being sad, and I hear people talking about unaliving, and I hear people talk about or see people talk about or reading about, people being depressed and shit. Like everybody immediately tries to fix it. And if you have a disorder like bipolar, there is no fucking fix. You have fucking bipolar. You will always be bipolar. No med makes your episodes go the fuck away. And some bipolars don't even take meds. You go through these episodes, but you don't have to necessarily react to it. And I know somebody just heard me say you don't have to react to your fucking emotions and do something about it. And they're like, well, my depression gets so bad I have to. No, you don't. No, you don't. An emotion cannot kill you. Your thought of killing yourself cannot kill you. Your emotion about how you feel about you cannot fucking kill you. But the steps you take to try to deal with that emotion is to kill yourself. So don't do that. Like, you don't have to go that far. You don't have to let yourself plan it. You don't have to let yourself fucking do that. And yes, you feel like shit, but in that regard, why do you got to listen to yourself? And I'm going on kind of a rant here, but that's kind of what I fucking do. What's this? Oh, the helpline, you feel like crap helpline is 988.
I just wanted to make sure that we throw that out there. I'll put it at the beginning of the episode too, but
yeah, please.
988, just for anybody who,
hey, mass.gov crisis hotline.
If you are feeling, it's like 911.
Yeah.
It's a universal number, and any phone you can dial 988 and you'll be connected with somebody.
In the United States, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I will actually, I don't know. It might be available. It says English and Spanish. I don't know. It might just be the US. But anyway, 988.
Yeah.
And you can be connected with somebody in the U.S. who will help you get through your crisis.
With that in mind, okay? A lot of the times people, when they talk about this stuff, they give like hotlines, national hotlines, all this shit about talking to strangers. Long before you ever get to a point where you may need a fucking crisis hotline, fucking call a friend. Like, go talk to this is going to sound really fucked up, but it's something I've done in the past. Go talk to a totally stranger.
So
talk to them about their fucking day. Yes, you're having a horrible day, and yes, you feel like shit, and no, you don't want to, but go do it anyway.
Around
go
the
focus
time
on somebody else's fucking problems for 5 minutes.
When I was kind of at my lowest point in life, where I was extremely depressed, for a few years, and I had points where I have done things or taken steps to unalive myself. And
why are we still using the euphemistic phrase? We already said the actual word several times
because in
over.
the context of me saying it, I feel more comfortable saying it that way.
Oh, all right.
I'm talking about my own experience.
Do your thing.
So in that instance, part of it was at that point in my life, I really didn't have anybody I could talk to at all either. So it wasn't just that. And when I did try to reach out to people, it didn't go well for me. But this was also before I knew I was autistic. This is like my late 20s. I went through a period of time where everything just kind of collapsed.
Oh, that was right before we met.
Yeah. I had a few instances where if I had followed through with things, I wouldn't be here right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it was difficult not having anyone to talk to. And when I did try to reach out to strangers, or I did try to reach out to friends or acquaintances, I didn't really have a lot of close friends at that point, because most of the people that I had been close with had left my life for one reason or another, or just weren't talking to me. Not because some of them probably didn't like me anymore, hated me, but that wasn't all of it. I had some really close friends who just left my life and disappeared, and I haven't heard from again. And I had some who I was close to, but just were busy doing their own thing and weren't available anymore. And I didn't really have anybody I could talk to about any of that stuff. And really, I didn't really start opening up to people for a while again after that, until I started meeting or hanging out with people at Bobby's.
Right.
But before that, I had reached out to friends or people I went to school with or acquaintances, and I was kind of, my feelings were just dismissed. Like people were very dismissive about it.
Because people fucking are.
It wasn't like I was clearly crying out for help to people.
Yeah.
And I just constantly hit brick walls and nobody gave a fuck.
Yeah.
So that was my experience.
In high school, there was a gentleman who used to call me Snick. Suicidal Nick. Which, thanks for that. He turned it into a nickname.
Sorry to bring down the conversation.
No, you didn't bring it down at all. You didn't bring it down at all, because that's exactly the topic. And that's exactly what people should be talking about, is their own previous experience. Because so there are people on one hand who think suicide is selfish. There are people on the other hand, okay, who think it's not selfish at all, and it's just a person in pain, which it's both. I think it's both. And I'll say that from not just a personal experience, but also from being a part of emotional support groups and suicide support groups and stuff like that. It's both, because you're having selfish thoughts and you're having thoughts of having pain, and you're being selfless to a degree because you're thinking about how much better other people's lives will be if they don't have to put up with you.
Do you believe in a woman's right to choose?
I don't know where you're going, but I'm going to go with yes.
Okay, you believe in a woman's right to choose. Why do you believe that women should have the right to choose?
Because I'll get slapped if I say otherwise.
No, I'm gonna go.
No. I honestly believe it's her right to choose because it ultimately affects her body.
All right, so you believe in bodily autonomy.
Yes.
Then what is more basic than having control over your body than your life?
Yeah, agreed. Oh, now I get where you're going. Yes, and agreed.
So one of the arguments for people being able to do that if they want to is that, well, it's my body. I should be able to decide whether I want to be here or not.
Agreed.
Which is one of the arguments for like physician-assisted suicide.
Yeah.
Like people who are terminally ill and they just want to like, well, it's like, why is it up to everybody else to decide if I have to sit here and suffer?
Right. Well, because we'll miss you. Well, that sounds like a you problem.
And I'm not saying that people should just go around
and really dismissive
and kill themselves.
Yep.
Although we'd probably be better off if you did. I'm just kidding.
Just saying.
By that, I don't mean anybody who's listening who is suffering silently. I just mean like everybody in general. Just, we'll just Thanos.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like I voted for Thanos 3 presidential elections in a row. I'm a big fan of randomly assign death to people.
How do I make jokes in an episode about depression and suicide? Okay?
You know what? But I'm
trying to be serious, but also be myself.
I might piss somebody off about this, but I think more jokes need to be made about it.
Because I
think way more jokes need to be made about suicide.
My normal personality, right? When we talk about serious things, I usually make jokes.
Yeah, you deflect with jokes.
And even when I was depressed and suicidal myself, I used to make jokes because that's how I deal with things.
Me too.
So, but
because that's our coping mechanism, right? Yeah. And other people will hear us making jokes about suicide and just be like, "How dare you? You're so insensitive." Actually, it's probably because we're in a deep depression. We're in a place in which we might be already thinking about that, but we're making the fucking joke because we're trying to help ourselves or because we're trying to cry out for help for you people, to all of you people. By the way, I said before, and I want to go back to it real quick because I want to make sure I completely tell my thought. Because I said, talk to a stranger, but talk to them about their issue, even when you're feeling like crap. And one of the reasons why is because when you're focusing on somebody else's issue, okay, it gives you a moment out of your own fucking swirly thought process there, your own fucking gloom, if you will. But also, it gives you an opportunity to be able to express some of it.
People don't use the word gloom often enough.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I want to make sure people understand. I'm not saying walk especially if you're anybody. Don't walk up to a total stranger in a bar and go, "I want to die," because that's a bad idea.
So here's my experience when it comes to that.
Yeah.
When other people talk to me about their problems, and I'm going through a lot of shit myself.
Yeah.
The way that it made me feel, was like I was stupid for being upset about all the problems that I'm upset about. So, for instance, you put things in perspective.
Yeah.
I feel like killing myself. I am depressed. I hate my life. But then I watch videos about all these people in the world who have things
far worse off than you.
Yeah, and then you feel like, well, I'm a fucking asshole for feeling this way.
Yeah.
Because there's people in the world who are struggling to get by, but perfectly happy.
Right.
And happy that they're just able to scrape by and be alive. And I'm over here, fucking first world country, fucking bitching about my shitty life. When there's people in the world who have a lot worse than me. I could have ended up in some fucking Russian gulag or been born in some under some oppressive government or whatever. I'm a bitch about this again. I've bitched about it many a times on this fucking show, and I'm going to do it one more fucking time. I'm not saying that means my feelings were invalid, but I'm just saying
they're not.
And it makes me feel stupid for why am I so obsessed with my shitty life when people have it a lot worse than me?
I've bitched about this many a times on the show, and I'm going to do it one more fucking time. All of the fucking social media people who bitch and moan about their life and how depressed they fucking are when they're in such a decent fucking house. They have food in their fucking stomach and they have a goddamn cell phone in their hand and fucking do a video on social media.
In some ways, and I don't want this to sound dismissive either.
No, okay.
Because I have some.
It's true. And I'm not trying to invalidate your fucking feelings. I'm putting it in context.
I have some thoughts on this that are probably a little controversial.
Okay.
But if you look at people who are struggling or people who are barely getting by in societies that aren't necessarily, let's say you're not in a first world country, let's say you're in a second or third world country, or you're in a poor country, or poor, maybe not even a poor country, but maybe you're in the US, but you're you live in a poor area, or you're poor, your family's poor, whatever. The suicide rates are lower in those populations than they are with people who have less struggles. And I think, I could be completely wrong, but I think part of that is if you are struggling just to get by and you're poor, you don't have time to be depressed or be suicidal. I feel like you have more meaning in your life.
Right.
Because you have things to work for and to live for.
You have purpose.
You have purpose. And purpose also, like that also, people who are religious tend to be less suicidal. People who are atheist or secular tend to be more
suicidal.
And so my theory on this, and I could be completely talking out of my asshole, is
I think we do that often.
Depression and suicide, the higher rates come along with, yes, like there's certain things that affect this, like us being neurodivergent, being autistic. Yes, those things affect it, but I'm just speaking in general here, that it's more of a position of privilege. And when you look at some of the people who
kind of agree,
look at all the famous people who have killed themselves, who were rich and famous, had money, but it didn't make a difference for how they felt. And I think part of that is, it's not about like having what we consider to be successful.
Right.
It's having purpose and meaning in your life.
Yes.
And I think part of that is something that I bitched about in the show before. It's a product of the modern world, with things like social media, technology. And I'm sorry to sound like Ted Kaczynski right now, but I think that
you go Unabomber.
Like I love computers.
I know
I love technology.
You love it when they go boom.
But I also have like a love-hate thing, because I've told you this before, and I think I've said it on the show as well. Like I love tech, I love phones, I love computers and all that shit. I spent a lot of money on all my gadgets.
Oh, yes, you have.
I love my gadgets.
Yes, you do.
But part of me hates all of this stuff too. Like part of me, my inner child, my id is like a hippie. Right. I just want to go live in the trees and fucking farm and like live like a primitive human being. And statistically, people who live like that are happier. Well, at least they're not killing themselves.
Okay. That we know of. They're out in the fucking woods in the middle of fucking nowhere. We don't know.
Well, they're dying of other reasons.
Yes, they're dying because they didn't bother getting vaccinated from something.
Well, I'm not saying that I should go like live in the woods in a commune. I'm just saying that people.
No, you're right.
If you have a tight knit family structure, you're part of a community, maybe part of a religious community as well. You have things in your life. You have structures in place. I think part of it is like we're disconnected from each other. We're alienated, and social media is not necessarily good for people's mental health.
So,
and I'm sorry if that sounds like I'm just making shit up.
No. That's I feel the same way.
That's my theory.
We could be fucking wrong. I haven't said it for a couple of episodes now, but we do not presume to be experts on a fuck nothing anything. We got some opinions, and that's what the fuck we're saying. And if you agree, you agree. If you don't, you don't.
That's why when I write poetry or I write art, it's usually about fucking plants and trees and the bees and animals.
You want to connect to it.
Because we're so disconnected from our environment.
Hold on. We feel like we are. That doesn't mean we are. We feel like we're disconnected
when was the last
to
time
other people.
You grew a fucking vegetable?
I fucking hate nature, so I'm not doing that. You go do that. I'm not going to. It would not make me feel better to go into the fucking woods and take a walk. You would feel better. I would feel worse because I don't want to be there.
Yeah, but what about just growing a vegetable in your
I don't want
herbs
to do that
in your yard?
I have no.
You don't have to go out into the woods.
I
just
have
grow
no
some fucking
want
parsley.
or desire to do that. I have no want.
So you want to just You want some poor farmer in the Midwest to grow everything for you and be underpaid for it.
Yes. And I would prefer if he was undereducated too.
Okay.
It would make me feel better.
Does he have to have a piece of wheat sticking out of the side of his
mouth?
Yes,
he does. He has to have less teeth than me, okay?
Okay.
I'm not making fun of farmers. I don't think all of you stereotypically have less teeth than me. Okay, anyway.
Well, a lot of them are poor.
Well, yeah. What was I going to say? Oh, right. So I don't disagree with anything you're saying, except for I don't believe we're actually disconnected. I think we're disconnected, and because we currently live at a time where how you feel and what do you want is so much more important than the reality of it. The reality of it is, like, if you feel fucking alone, there are people you can fucking call. Every time I hear somebody say, I don't have any friends, or I didn't have any friends at a certain period of time, no, you didn't know the people you could contact.
I heard somebody describe this phenomenon this way.
By the way, I keep tapping on the table. I'm so sorry.
I don't know if I'm doing it justice, but essentially, we as human beings, throughout history, in a certain points of time, you can point to whatever you want. We lived simple lives in certain ways, right?
Yeah.
As technology and things in general, not just technology, but as our lives have become more complicated, life today is much more complicated for the average person than it was 100 years ago, right?
Is it?
Yes, and I can explain all the different ways, but it's not really important now.
No. Tell me your point. I don't want to derail your point.
The more things that we have, the harder it is to make us happy because our expectations rise along with the standard of living that we have. So the more your standard of living goes up, the more it takes to make you feel happy. This applies to a lot of people. So for instance, if you grew up in a rich family, or let's say you're a woman and you marry somebody who's rich, or a man, whatever, and you live with somebody who's rich, going back to living a middle-class lifestyle might make you feel like shit because you're used to all of these things.
Well, I mean, it'll cause you to get some level of depression and despair for a little while, I think. I think so. Something that sounds like you're saying
the standard of living for the average person is much higher now than it was 100 years ago, because the average person has access to like the internet. We have cell phones. We have all these different, we have better healthcare. We have better everything.
I've heard this before, but I'd like to point out that we're saying it's better now, but why don't we put it in context of time period?
Yeah, the standard of living in 2024 is better than the standard of living in like 1920.
But if
for the average person,
if we take, how the fuck do you define that? Anyway, if we take somebody who is upper middle class from the 1930s, and we take somebody who's upper middle class now, okay, in relation to the people who have less in those time periods, they're relatively the same.
Well, the somebody who
you're saying better healthcare, but like better only because we've gone 70 fucking years.
Here's an extreme example. If you go to like the Gilded Age, right? All of the rich
late 1800s.
Yeah, the Gilded era, you know, like the Rockefellers, all those fucking rich people, right?
Yeah, late 1800s, yeah.
The standard of living for the average person today is better in many ways than for those rich people from that era. We have access to better healthcare than they had access to.
Because it exists.
We have access, yes, but the average person didn't have access to the same level of things that those rich people had access to. The average person has access to better food, instant
rich
knowledge.
Rich is rich.
I mean, you can go down the street in any city in America now and get any kind of food you want. Back then,
we have greater access. Yes.
Right, and those people didn't. Those rich people didn't have access to the internet. They couldn't just learn anything they wanted to
because it didn't exist.
I know, and because all those things exist now, the average person has a better standard of living.
See, I don't know if I'd say that it's better now that we have the internet.
What criteria? Because it sounds like you're disagreeing, but I don't really see your point in disagreeing.
No. I'm not 100% disagreeing.
Like,
I'm just saying.
What would you say is worse for that person now? What? What would you say? In what ways? What criteria would you say that the average person now is worse off than somebody who's rich during the Gilded Age?
I didn't say they were.
Well, you sound like you weren't agreeing with me that the standard of living for the average person is better now than it was back then.
Well, I don't agree with you, but I'm not disagreeing with you either.
Okay.
Like I'm not saying that like we're worse off somehow. I'm not arguing a point. I just don't agree with you.
And if you want to talk worldwide, not just the U.S., the standard of living is...
Whoa. Why would we talk about anybody else?
The standard of living is inarguably better for most human beings now than at any point in history.
So
when you look at like how many people have been lifted out of poverty...
Hold on. Let me see if I'm saying this. And I could be horribly fucking wrong, man. We both know full well sometimes I'll talk out of my ass. I got no problem with that. What I'm saying is, though, if you were rich in 1890, you had access to better food than people who did not have as much money as you, right? And today, Jeff Bezos has greater access to better food than me and you.
Kind of. Not really, but kind of. The disparity is different because
let's keep it in generalities.
The food that
please.
those rich people in the 1800s had access to versus what like normal people ate, there wasn't as big of a difference between what you can get nowadays. Like the average person has access to variety and much better food.
We have greater availability now because of a whole bunch of other shit.
Right.
But I'm saying we shouldn't compare the two. What I'm disagreeing with in all of what you're saying is I don't believe we should be comparing that at all.
So the whole point
the
whole point of me bringing this up was that
what's that called?
I don't know what you're
not relative equivalency or some shit like that. I don't think you can do the compare and contrast on that. I think we would say that now we have a better quality of life because we have all this shit, but they didn't even have the ability to have or not have that kind of stuff at that time. There was too many other things that were unaffected by it. So I don't think our life is better because of it. I also don't think our life is more, getting back on point, I don't think our life is more complicated now.
My point in saying all this was
please.
The more because that wasn't the whole point was to compare about people in the past. No. The point that I was making is that
got derailed.
This is something I've heard other people say, and I just thought it was interesting. Is that the more your standard of living goes up, the more it takes to make you happy because you get used to having certain things.
No, and I understand that point.
So that I'm saying that could help explain why there's a lot of people who are poor or struggling, yet they don't have the same rates of depression and suicide as people who are more middle class or upper class. Maybe that's a contributing factor because those poor people have lower expectations because they don't have much. So anything they get is a fucking huge deal.
Well, and I get what you're saying. So I'm gonna not go on my own tangent, but I hear people talk about people get more depressed when they don't have a lot of stuff or when they transition from that, right? And I think it's a perspective thing because how many things do we really need?
Well, this kind of goes back to what I was saying about going and living in a hippie.
Hold on.
But
I've got a real reason why I'm saying this. What do we need to survive as a human being, as a biological?
Water.
Well, we gotta shit too, dude. And we gotta sleep too.
Well, you don't. Yeah, but you don't need shit. You need to shit.
Well, okay. So
you said how many things do you need? The things you need.
I'm sorry. You took that as like possession. I meant it as what are the things that as a biological organism you need to do.
As far as things you need, you just need water and food.
That's
preferably
what you need to intake.
Preferably
just listen,
clean water.
Guy. Fucking listen. Fucking.
You said
detail.
As a biological organism.
Yeah. You need to. You need to eat, sleep, and shit. Right. Those are the three things you need to do, and everything else is fucking optional. Correct.
And drink water.
Eating. I'm putting the two of those together, motherfucker. Just go with the concept for me. Just play along. Eat, sleep, and shit, correct?
Sure.
We don't really need much of anything else outside of that, right? Huh. I mean, do we need shelter? No. Do we want and would it make us more comfortable? Yes.
Well, that kind of depends on where you live.
Yeah. There you go, though, because not everybody needs shelter in that way. Is it better for us if we had shelter? Yes. Is it more safe? Yes. Is it more secure? Yes. Is it more comfortable? Yes.
There's certain
but that's still
areas in the world
choice.
Where humans can only live because they have shelter.
Yes, I know.
Otherwise, you would die.
Yes. But there are also parts of the world where you live where you don't necessarily need fucking shelter and you're fine.
Yeah, maybe living on a tropical island, you'd probably be fine.
Yeah.
Because it's warm enough. You just...
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Well, what if you need shade? Shut up. Anyway, my point behind this, and I'm making it very simplistic for a fucking reason, because it kind of goes on to your point about living out in the fucking woods and shit. But why I'm pointing this out is because people get depressed when they see somebody driving a fucking Ferrari and they don't fucking have it, which is a cognitive distortion, by the way, and I'm not going to name the motherfucker. But they get all down on themselves because they see somebody who has success or has more wealth, and they're like, oh, why don't I have that? And then they get depressed, and then they're looking at the choices in their life, and they're like, oh, what the fuck, you know?
I don't think I've ever felt that way about possessions like that.
You know, a lot of people do, though. A lot of people do.
I felt that, like, some sort of that envy.
Yes, that would be the word for it.
I felt some of that envy when it comes to other things, but it's more about some of the social stuff.
Okay. Well, yes, because you have a social deficit. So do I.
Like being treated ways and then like not understanding why other people are able to have certain things that I haven't, but that's more like socially. Well, like how come this person's more socially accepted, or how come this person has success with this and that, and I can't, even though maybe I feel like I'm just as talented, or I feel like I'm just as good. But
I'm with you on that too, because I don't get jealous of people's stuff. I get jealous of people or envious of people because of that stuff too. And I've told you I feel that way about you at times, that I'm rather envious because people want to work with you and people want to not just partner with you because of what you're good at, but also because people want you to be involved in their projects because they like you and they think you're a nice guy. And also you are very talented. And people like you have to say, well, what about Nick? People like Ian, who we've had on this show, have to say things like, well, what about Nick? He's smart too. He's talented too. And then people are like, well, you know, if he wants to come along. And I understand that that is a product of the way I behave at times. I understand that for everyone who just said, well, stop being a dick and people will like you. I'm also not going to compromise how I do things either.
I think that it also doesn't
But that's
change.
my choice to make in that. But what I'm saying with that is, like, I feel envious of you in that way too. But what I'm saying for most people would look at, like, if somebody saw your computer tower, okay, somebody might be jealous that they don't have that you were able to afford it. Or like some assholes
saved up money
do.
for it.
Right. But most assholes would see it initially and go, well, he's got more money than me.
Like I couldn't,
but you
I couldn't have
you
afforded,
saved.
I couldn't have afforded to just buy that. I had to save up money for it.
Well, it kind of goes to like when people shit on billionaires just because they're billionaires. Okay. When people shit on,
which is still a privilege to save money.
Rich motherfuckers.
Not everybody can save money.
They can't.
Because they just have just enough to get by.
There is a level of
but it's not like
to
I
that.
just had, a couple grand sitting to just go buy a computer. I had to save up money for it.
You purposely actually saved money for it.
Yeah.
But it's like when people shit on rich people because they're rich. Like to me, that's a problem because that, like, every one of us wants to have money. Like, how much is debatable, but every one of us want to have money.
I think we should get rid of currency.
In our current society, Happy Cappy.
Let's just go to the Star Trek method, right?
I would actually prefer that. But anyway,
I think the technology has to get to a certain point before you can do that.
Let's jump back to how this ties into depression and suicide and shit, because we started off heavy and strong in that direction.
Well,
but
my friend pointed out that we need first contact with the Vulcans first.
Yes, we do. So let's jump back on to the depression and think how this ties to it. If you feel unsatisfied in your life because you feel like you should have stuff, if you bitch and moan because somebody else has a fuck ton of stuff, if you're constantly bitching that other things are making your life miserable and you always see it that way, you will always be dealing with depression. One of the reasons why I keep in mind the 3 things you have to do in life, the 3 things that have to exist, that you need in life, actually need. The reason why I focus on that philosophically for myself and I keep that in perspective is because when you start to think about all the shit outside of that and you start to think you need yourself and you need a TV, you need an internet, you need a computer, you need a car, you need a blah, 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 all of these other things, you get really wrapped up in thinking you're a fucking failure if you don't have them.
I need an internet.
Uh-huh. I would like to have the internet because I really like streaming services.
Picking on the way you said you need an internet.
Oh, I did?
Yes.
Yeah, all right. Shit happens.
Instead of the internet. But I just thought that's why I was giving you shit.
Why is it the and not an?
I don't know. An internet?
Yeah.
Because...
Isn't it referred to as interwebs, plural?
No, that's a joke term that people say.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't know. We should call Al Gore. I'm sure he knows.
But isn't like the full name of the internet internetwork?
Well, because internet is used as a noun. And it's a prop. Is it a prop? I don't know. But it's the internet because it's a noun.
Oh.
Yeah.
Isn't like short form for like internetwork or some shit?
I don't know, man. My brain's not.
I don't know.
My brain's not there right now.
Yeah, if somebody smarter than us knows shit about computers, can you let us know? Okay.
I used to know.
Are you seriously going to look that up while we're talking about fucking the other two things? You are. You really are. Okay. Origin, inter and network. Ha, internet. Ha, I knew it. Okay,
you
guys.
must be very proud of yourself.
I am really proud of myself.
So, guys, suicide.
Yeah, let's jump back. Can you bring back up that?
Well, the internet probably makes a lot of people want to kill themselves.
Well, a lot of people blame social media on the rise of the suicide rate. A lot of people blame the rise of mental health issues and depression issues on social media. And one thing I will point out about that is, yes, statistically, and yes, we got numbers that say the more people that use social media, the higher the depression is. I think that's correlation.
Higher rates of cheating too.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a thing that increased too with social media?
Yes, especially Facebook.
You unhappy motherfuckers.
So
sorry.
Wait,
did you say Facebook?
I'm pretty sure I could find the data on this if I looked it up. But
don't.
yeah, well, here's the thing: did the cheating increase, or is it just that?
Or is it more visible?
More visible, or is it because? So the explanation that I read was that it was because it was more opportunity for people to cheat. So let's say you're in a relationship and you're unhappy with your partner, and you have Facebook. All of a sudden, you have easy access to people that you are acquaintances, friends with, or people you went to school with. Mm-hmm. And now let's say your high school crush sends you a message, and it's easy to just kind of, rekindle that. So that's kind of what was happening is partners. It was ease of access of cheating.
That to me is part of the.
So it's not that
people
may have wanted to cheat or felt unhappy, but they didn't have as easy access to it. Same thing with, but it also could be that because of that ease of access, somebody who might not have cheated in the past ended up cheating because it was
easy.
Because it was easy, and also the person's right there, maybe persuading you.
Well, because but that makes it easy though, Steve.
Yeah,
and all of this kind of ties into depression. I know we strayed a great deal from it, and we could probably talk some stats and shit like that and some research and shit and tell people all about, what do we got up here? More than 6 in 10 autistic people have considered suicide. Okay. 3 in 10, more than 3 in 10 autistic adults have attempted suicide, and almost 8 in 10 autistic adults have a mental health condition. Yeah, shit.
By the way, I don't know where this data came from. It was just the first one that came up. This was from a website in the UK.
Yeah. So anyway, I wanted to read that off real quick because we could give you an entire episode of
Nottingham
all of that
University
stuff. But everybody's going to talk about it in that way. I want to talk about it in a more realistic way where we're not like, whoa, because we all know autistic folks struggle with this stuff.
I don't think there's an easy answer for
everybody struggles with this.
I don't think there's an easy answer for the depression thing as far as social media, because there's a lot of different factors. I think it's easier for people to bully and get bullied. It's easier for people to
fuck their opinion.
It's also like there's a term for the effect. I don't remember what it's called, but basically with apps like Instagram, which focus on photos, you're comparing yourself to people all the time.
Yeah.
Plus people post fake ass photos. You post things at your best. If you're on vacation, you're enjoying your life, you're posting those photos. If somebody else doesn't have those things, now they're comparing themselves to you. And I think that's why people say that social media makes people feel more depressed, is because it makes it easier for you to compare how shit your life is to the false image of other people's lives being better.
You don't know how they got there. You don't know how they got that money. You don't know how hard or how not hard they worked to get there. That's the context. Okay. Yeah. The context is super important to that. But I also want to point out, and before we end up wrapping this up, and I'm assuming we're pretty close to that time, I want to point out a gentleman by the name of Viktor Frankl. Okay. I think you know where I'm going with this. And if you don't,
I mentioned his book on the show before.
Yeah. His book is called Man's Search for Meaning. Fucking read it. It's fucking great. Fucking wonderful. He was a dude who was in a concentration camp, and he survived the motherfucker. He wrote a goddamn book. But more importantly about this guy, because I'm not going to talk about the book right now, go read the fucking book. It's a fucking great book. It's
one of the best
amazing.
Books I've ever read.
Go fucking read it. It's his personal fucking experience. Anyway, but this gentleman came up with this idea when he got out called logotherapy. Okay. And it's purpose-driven existential therapy. And one of the reasons why I'm bringing it up is something you said before about people lacking purpose. right? He actually found that that's what got people through the worst fucking event, well, what he called the worst fucking event of all time for people. That's what got people through.
And if it's not the worst, it's definitely up there as well.
It's got to be top 3. Got to be top 3. Anyway, he talked about that's how people survived, is having a purpose, having hope in themselves.
Even if it was something simple like food or cigarettes, which they talked about how it was almost like prison. They use cigarettes as currency.
Yeah.
In the concentration camps.
But it's about like, and I get when people get depressed, they lose hope. But sometimes taking a little bit of hope from somebody else or listening to what somebody else said opposed to what your brain tells you at that given moment isn't a bad idea.
But it doesn't have to be something big. It can be something small.
Something small. Like your hope could be, I'm going to get to 5 o'clock this afternoon to buy myself a fucking Twinkie. Get to 5 o'clock.
I'm going to have something I really like for dinner tonight. Yeah. I'm going to have a nice dinner with my partner or something.
Exactly. And now with that sentimental thing being said, now I'm going to say something dicky or real asshole-like statement. Stop taking the easy way. Steve talked about social media and how much easier it became when we got greater level of access to cheat on a fucking part. Stop taking the easy fucking route. Now, I'm not saying I'm not at fault of this too. In fact, all of the shit that I said today, I go through as well regularly about bad behaviors and shit. Stop taking the easy way out. And I'm saying this to anybody, especially when it comes to trying to find the easy way out for depression, easy way out of having bad shit in your life or not having as much as other people. Stop taking the easy way. Fucking pursue the hardest fucking path you can find. If you're saying to yourself, I don't have a whole lot of money, well, what's the hardest way for me to get money? Well, I got to go to college, got to work 2 jobs, I got to this, I got to that. Do that. Okay? Follow that path. Fucking follow the hardest path possible. Because what you will achieve of it may not be the end result, but at least you're putting a fuck ton of effort into something. Stop taking the easy path. And you just reminded me of something. It was something I used to end, and I think we're getting close. I used to end every single group when I was an addiction counselor. I used to end every single group with this one specific phrase. Okay, which is everything you've ever thought, felt, every behavior you ever had, you are not alone. You are not alone in the world. There are 7.8 billion people on the planet. I don't know what it is now. It could be 8 billion people. There's 8 billion people on the planet. And out of 8 billion people, somebody else on this planet, if not more than one other person, has thought, felt, understood, been treated, experienced the same shit as you.
Have you ever seen...
You are not alone. That's what I'm trying to say.
Have you ever seen this commercial about mental health from the UK?
No, it's from the UK. So no, I haven't. So are we going to play that real quick?
Before, I just want to get your reaction to it.
Oh, great. Cool.
So we're going to...
I dig it.
Oh, sorry, thank you. How you doing? God, it's exciting, isn't it?
So, how's the week?
You're okay? Yeah.
There you go. Thanks for standing up. And other times it's not. Damn, dude, don't make eye contact with me. Yeah. Yeah. Because you ain't alone. No matter how you feel, no matter how you think, no matter what you think you're going through, you ain't alone. Oh, there it is. Call 999 if you're in the UK.
Yeah, I wanted to get your reaction to that.
No, I fucking love it because that's something people don't talk about a lot is like a lot of people are super trained to think depression and suicidal ideation look a certain way. Look for the trigger signs. If they're giving away all their stuff, they might be contemplating suicide. Yeah, or maybe they're just handing out shit because they don't care about material stuff. I'm just saying that there's a lot of signs people don't pay attention to. Like for myself, when I've ever gotten to certain points, like I didn't withdraw from other people. I was more social. I went out more because I was trying to put on a fucking mask more.
Yeah.
I got more energetic, but I also drank more. I also indulged in shit more. I also had less give a shit about consequences.
People who are kind of out there and funny.
Yep.
You know, you look at
Robin Williams.
Yeah, Robin Williams.
Yeah.
Or people like him who
My idol. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, no, not the end, though. I don't want nobody to misunderstand that one.
No, but, you know, it's people, you know, sometimes it's not people that, like, you would expect, you know? He seemed like such a happy, friendly guy.
I mean, that's one of the downsides to the archetypes, the stereotypes, the prototypes that we see. At the same time, though, we need to also see that too, because it's really hard to communicate, depression and suicide if you're not looking at somebody who looks down, right? Who looks less energetic. Sorry, I had to stop for a second. I just realized too that
anybody who's listening to the podcast and not watching it will not see the commercial that I played. But if you haven't seen it, it was made by a football club, European football club, in the UK.
You mean the actual football?
And it's two guys who constantly go to football games together. And one of them looks kind of like meh, like not happy to be there.
Well, he's also wearing black. In a lot of his
friend is like, grabbing him and hugging him like cheering on the game,
being super energetic.
And then at the end of the video, it's his friend who ends up killing himself.
Right. Which it took me by surprise. I thought they were going to say the other guy too. Yeah. Like the whole way through, I thought it was going to be the other guy. And that's why I said while it was playing, I was like, stand up, just stand up. Because I will say when it comes to
the whole point was that
to make you feel that it's that guy. Yeah.
Because it's not always so obvious.
One thing I will say is like when you're feeling a little sad, a little depressed, get up, move in any way possible, move. And if you physically cannot move, okay, like you got a disability that causes you to not be able to get out of a fucking chair or something, move your arm, move your head around, reach for something. Now you could be like quadriplegic, like not able to move from the neck down, and in that regard, communicate with somebody, call anybody, call a random. So here was something I did once upon a time, and I have no idea if anybody's going to give a shit about this idea or not. And I'm not saying necessarily I always do this or whatever, but once upon a time, I took this thing called the phone book, and I opened up to a random page and put my finger on a random person's name, and I called them because I felt like I couldn't call anybody else. And I called some random fucking person just so I could utter the words out loud. I'm not doing well, and I am having thoughts I don't want to have. Now, I'm an asshole because I put my emotional fucking baggage on a complete fucking stranger, but guess what it allowed me to do? It
Be
gave
honest?
me, and it allowed me to vocalize it and allowed me to break that dam of crying and alleviated in the smallest little way enough that allowed me the energy to stand up, put on my shoes, and go for a fucking walk. Now, did the walk make the depression go away? No. But it allowed me to keep moving forward. And it allowed me to keep moving forward just fucking long enough for the fucking thoughts to go away. for the depression to cycle out of me. And for anybody who believes that you have to do something about emotions, I guarantee you, if you just fucking sit on them, they will go away on their own. It'll fucking fade. Emotions fucking are transient. They fucking fade. And if you don't believe me, fucking test that theory. And if I'm fucking wrong by all you fucking research happy motherfuckers, I'm okay with that too. I'm okay with being wrong with that because it helps me a great deal to just ride it the fuck out. Anyway, sorry.
No, I think that's. I don't know what else there is to say. I think.
Yeah. I mean, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, like, let us know. Because it is something I deal with regularly. I do get depression quite often. I do cycle into it, but I also cycle into mania too. And that's also got its own fucking litany of fucking issues to deal with. As well as autism. But, I mean, I will say, like, there are times where being autistic has exacerbated some of those fucking issues. The depression or the anxiety or the mania. I will say that it's probably contributed to kicking me in the fucking face in both of those at times. They don't necessarily play well together.
Yeah.
But they're both in my head, and I keep moving forward. So anyway, is it about that time?
Yeah, I think so.
Great. So with that being said, if you like, just like whatever, leave a comment. This is a very serious conversation. It's a very, very serious topic, but it is something that needs to be talked about, and it needs to be talked about more openly. It needs to be in more spaces. And I think the more euphemistic fucking language and the more flowery we fucking make it, we're taking away how serious it really fucking is. And it needs to be a real honest God fucking conversation. You need to feel something about it. If you're talking about a topic that is serious about humans and you don't fucking feel something, or if you're using language to avoid fucking feeling something, you got fucking problems, okay? Fucking, we all need to have uncomfy conversations sometimes. Anyway, so thank you very much for listening.
Not all PP times.
Every episode, right? Yes.
What was the thing I used to close with? I don't remember. I used to say something else.
Oh, you used to update people on
that's
on the fake-tism.
That's
on the
right,
fake
guys.
autism vaccine.
I had to start back at square one. I'm really sorry. I forgot all about this. So don't just because I stopped talking about it doesn't mean the research stopped. So Nick started to regress after a period of time. He got better for a short period of time. He started making more eye contact. He wasn't as picky about his food. He wore clothing of all different types of colors and textures, and he was great for a while. But then he started to regress. He stopped making eye contact as much. So it turns out my cure is more like it alleviates symptoms temporarily. But something in the MMR vaccine that he was given as a child, it renders my temporary cure. It renders it useless after a certain period of time. The body builds immunity, and the autism gene overtakes.
So it's like a psychiatric medication. It just limits down symptomology. Doesn't make it
for a
away.
little bit, but then your body builds an immunity to it. So unfortunately, I'm working on a newer, stronger, more powerful cure. But the ingredients have to be mined by children with small hands in China. So it's taking me a little while to get my hands on all of it. But I can tell you that it does have star anise. It does have quartz, opal, several essential oils, and 3 or 4 traditional Chinese medical ingredients. When you mix all of these together, it forms a concoction that is able to limit the tism. Limit, not make go away. But so, with all of that being said, I will update you on Nick's progress after I've given him the new updated autism cure.
It's like literally every March we end up talking about this.
No, I forgot. I'm glad you reminded me about people need to know about the cure. And I'm not talking about the band from the 80s.
Nope. I also want to point out, so we made a post about the autism commandments the other day, and they're wicked funny. You should look at it on Facebook. And if anybody's interested, we are going to be starting to make shirts for the autism commandments. And so look out for those. And if you're a big fan of shirts that we make, like the
Well, you want to
autism
use the same
acupuncture?
graphic that I already made and
Yes.
put it on there?
Oh, fuck yes.
'Cause I wanted to put like a tablet, like a Moses style tablet.
Ooh,
But
that'd be awesome.
For social media posting purposes, it didn't work very well. So that's why I ended up just doing like a stone background with the commandments on it. But for a t-shirt, I can maybe update the graphic and make it like more like an actual tablet.
Yeah, I think it'd be a great idea to make a tablet. It's the Autism Commandments. I'm a big fan of the last one. Number 10 is, thou shalt not touch me. I dig it.
That's right.
Anyway, thank you very much. We'll keep you updated on the
cure. Hashtag autism cure.
Oh, my God.
gonna
Have
be
a good day, everybody.
Trending hashtag now.
Special thanks to our Patreon subscribers. Thank you, Ray Hansen.
We're still going to talk about the Big D.
Well,
Depression.
I was going to say neither one of us know what a big D looks like.
That is a true statement.
Okay.
I saw one once,